Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Matt.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready for this episode. I've been waiting all week. Can't wait to record, so we should probably get into it.
Same. I've been looking forward to this, so let's crack on.
Let's roll this theme tune and get into it.
Go, go, go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm Neil.
And I'm Matt, and we are the Invention Junkies.
We lost our jobs at a high-tech startup, so have 3 months to start a successful design business on our own.
Listen in to follow our story, relive our failures, and join us on this hilarious race against the clock.
So I should probably say good morning, Mr. Director.
Yes, Mr. Director. Oh, I like that.
Mr. Director. You always love
Mr.
the power
Shareholder.
trip. Yes. Yeah, we both own one share of our newly incorporated company.
They might be worth something one day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, worth loads. At the moment, was it a penny or a pound? I don't know. Anyway.
A pound, yeah.
Yeah, right. So that kicks us off, really.
Yeah, should you talk us through our financial situation?
Yeah, looking really well. We've got less than £5 in our joint bank account. We're halfway through our initial runway of 3 months-ish. And so, on paper, it's looking pretty bleak. But I'm feeling more pumped and excited about this than I ever have. It just feels like, despite the bits on paper, everything's coming together so nicely that I just can't help but wake up excited and not wait to jump on and carry on working.
Yeah, we've talked about how some of the projects we've tried in the past in previous episodes, and we've never got to this level of consistency with something. I think even the fact that we're on episode 6 of a podcast, it's like, oh, I've never done anything 6 times before. This is wicked. But I think this is I'm going to do a quick shout out to everyone that is giving us free licenses, free software, startup accounts. We are scrambling to keep cash in the bank because, as they say, cash is king. And so I'm just going to rattle off some of the things that we're doing to keep our costs down. We couldn't avoid the company's house registration fees. That is a legal thing that you have to pay for. But we currently have a startup license for our CAD software. We have a startup business thing for Office 365, emails, etc. There's a few complications, but we're working them out. We have free trials that we're using on pretty much every tool or platform, even to the extent that Neil has masterminded a way for us to use 2 different platforms to manage our social media, and we're going to alternate them week by week so that we can get the most out of it. It's insane how desperate we are to keep this going. We didn't save for this. Like, I think, you hear of people that have planned years of savings so that they can finally launch their business. And we've wanted to do something for a while, but we lost our jobs, right? Like we didn't have the money in the bank to start this, but we started it anyway.
Yeah. There's a few things you touched on there. One is it's really nice how many schemes there are to help people like us starting this thing. And it's really validating as well, because you can sort of get in this imposter syndrome where you think, you could, well, I'm saying I'm starting this company, but it's just me and Matt on the computer all day, working with a designer. We're drawing pretty pictures in our books and telling people we're running a business, and you feel like they're saying, "Oh, that's nice, yeah." When you're going to get a real job.
Oh, your little job, yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got these, these big corporate companies, and you say, "Well, we're a new startup," and they're like, "Great, have free licensing for a year, have all this free stuff that you get there." And you're like, wow, this is incredible. I'm not going to get in a rant about politics, but I was a bit disappointed about, we're potentially starting something that's going to grow the economy, and there's not much support from sort of the government side of things. I'm not going to get into that. That's for another day. Or something else. But
It's not this podcast.
that is not this podcast for sure. But yeah, it's very nice that we've got all this support coming through. Very validating. So that does bring us into our weekly segment, the most talked about segment. Everyone's talking about this. It was on the front page of some of the newspapers recently, and it's the Invention Junkies theme of the week.
Oh, you did a little voice there. It's evolving.
Well, I put my my voiceover hat on, and I became the voiceover guy.
Maybe we should have like accents of the week.
Oh god, yeah. Then we're gonna get into all sorts of hilarious trouble.
Right. So we have been designing like crazy. Sketches on the walls. I try and have a notebook wherever I end up spending any sort of stationary time. So I've got one in the living room. I've got one next to the bed. If I'm going out the house to like go somewhere for the day, I will bring one, whether it's like a mini one in the car or something in a bag. I don't know if you're doing something similar.
I'm keeping my notebook. I'm not to that extent. I could be better actually. I could be much better at carrying a notebook. I tend to get these ideas in the most unfortunate situations, so they go in my phone. Normally I'll just text you. I'm like, I've got an idea, and then you'll like calm me down and say, okay, like write it down and move on now. That's one of many ideas. It's not just about one big idea.
As long as you're not trying to like scrawl it on toilet paper or something.
Well, I mean, I do write things on the shower window, on the shower door sometimes, so I don't forget it.
Yeah,
so I must remember that. And then sort of run out the shower and text you. Oh, I have another idea.
I do like the shower whiteboard. It's oh god. Just let it die, Neil. But we mentioned a few of the tools that we'd been using, and so we wanted to come back and explain how they work, what they are, why we use them. So yeah. I think possibly I was the one that introduced you to the idea of Crazy Eights. Is that true?
You did, yeah. Quite a few of these. I think just before we get into it, the design process that you're meant to follow, I've had such a roller coaster of emotions with it, because I love it and hate it at the same time. I've been so trained to design the finished product from the beginning, and having to go on the journey of divergent thinking and all the steps you need to, the rules you've got to follow, and which we'll break down here. I love how empowering they can be, but also how frustrated I get that I've been getting to the finished product and thinking we should do this, and then I can't get off that, and then have to think, nope, park that, because that's just one of many different streams. So yeah, you've been like a very very well required sort of design coach for me the last couple of weeks, because you've really been saying, nope, that's that's great, but keep thinking along these lines and helping me get into the right mindset. And I've been really looking forward about talking about this. Crazy Eights is where it started. So let's jump into Crazy Eights and explain a little bit what that is.
So the idea is it's just based on the most straightforward piece of stationery you'd have around you, a blank piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of you need this pen and you need this pencil. We might talk about that later.
Matt pens.
The idea is that you just split a page into 8 sections. So you halve it and then you draw 3 lines. Is that 4?
8 sections. Stick with 8 sections. Don't get too complicated.
Split it into 8 sections.
Podcast.
You could do it with lines, you could fold it up, it doesn't matter. The point is you've got 8 different units that you can now sketch in. And then I've had lots of different variations of this over the years, where you have a minute per section or you have a minute total. The idea is to time constrain the process. You could take 10 minutes if that's what you have time for, but it's very easy to think, right, I need to make a hairbrush, so I'm going to draw a hairbrush, and then I'm going to make a hairbrush, and brilliant, I did it. I came up with this idea, I drew it, I manufactured it, great. But you haven't really gone through any process, and you could hit a lot of blockers, you could hit a lot of mistakes, you could do the completely wrong thing, make a hairbrush that no one wants, whatever. That was a really rubbish example, but I might stick with it. With Crazy Eights, the idea is, okay, I need a way of brushing hair. What are 8 different ways that I can brush hair? And so you might draw a comb, you might draw a hairbrush, you might draw something else. And the idea is that you're pushing yourself to come up with something that's different to the last idea, that's different to all the other ideas on the page. And this is what we talk about as divergent thinking. So, I mean, let's follow the exercise through, Neil. What are some ways that you could brush your hair?
My fingers, spaghetti, some form of sandblasting with high pressure, and maybe mix a high air pressure with bits of spaghetti.
Yeah. I like the idea of using other hair, because then you wouldn't know that you're brushing your hair.
What?
If you just had a clump of hair to brush your hair with.
What, so you feel like it's smooth when it's just not actually your real hair?
Exactly.
Yeah?
I almost wish I hadn't said that. So this is the point of...
This is Crazy Eight. It's crazy!
I've gone all red. The point of Crazy Eights is to really push the boat out and come up with wild and wacky ways of solving a problem.
Yeah, I really like it because the time you go into it thinking I can never come up with 8 ideas. This is just insane, and it's amazing what it does to you. So that time pressure of you must have an idea now, and then after the first 1 or 2, it pushes you to just come up with stupid things, and then all of a sudden they're not. You think they're stupid to start with, but there's little gems of things that you think, actually, I really like that small element of that, and that's the bit that you get. You get that divergent thinking really gets you thinking outside. It forces you outside the box, and we've done it a few times now. We've done it with many of the other projects. And I remember the first time I thought, this is stupid. I'm not going to get 8 ideas, and then by the end of it, I was just like, wow, this was incredible. It made me think of there's another technique where they say, come up with 10 ideas for something, and if you can't come up with 10, then you should come up with 20, because if you try to come up with 20, you'll get to 10 pretty easily, and and then you'll get there. It doesn't matter how the quality of the idea, it's just getting the ball rolling on generating all these ideas. And we teased last week that we come up with over 100 ideas, and that was using just this method. We had a flip chart paper that we split into. It's actually 16 sections. We sat on either side of the table, right on the same piece of paper, and we did a minute per 8 boxes, which was way too short of a time. But we got a lot of ideas out, and of those many ideas, we then refined. We turned that over, and we did again, and we got a lot that we're now building on. Just we highlighted the things that we liked. I love it. I absolutely love it.
There's 2 pieces of magic that I want to just pull out because we're talking about Crazy Eights. The first is problem framing. Just going back to the hairbrush idea, if I said I need to draw 8 different hairbrushes, it's not going to work. I'm just going to draw 8 different hairbrushes. I switched the way I was talking about it when we did that example just then. I said ways of brushing hair, because that is different to hairbrushes. I've already got a solution when I say hairbrushes. I'm only going to think of one specific thing that I've got in my head. Whereas if I say ways of brushing hair, Neil said fingers, spaghetti, whatever. And this is really, really important whenever you're starting out on a problem. You think, oh, I've got an idea. What problem does it solve? Frame the problem and work from there.
So that's actually, you don't want to brush your hair. You want hair that isn't tangled, right? So
now you're thinking.
Yeah. How do I have hair that isn't tangled? So, and that actually makes you think of a whole different thing. When you say a hairbrush, that's just the conventional way of making hair not tangled, or smooth, or whatever it is. But framing the problem the right way really helps you to think broadly about, okay, well, maybe I don't need to have bristles on the end of a paddle that I pulled from my head. Maybe I, do all these other ways. Let's not go into it, otherwise, we'll start another Crazy 8 journey.
The other piece of magic is, and I think this is more key than anything else, it's not about hitting a number. You are doing Crazy 8s to exercise a muscle. So I hope this metaphor works. I'm not a gym goer, But I don't think people go to the gym so that they can say, oh, I did 20 reps on that weight. They go to the gym because they want to have a stronger arm, or they want to look more fit, or they want to be more healthy. So you don't want to do crazy eights so that you can say, oh, I can come up with 8 ideas, or I can come up with 100 ideas. You want to do crazy eights so that you can practice your muscle in solving problems with new and different ways, so that you are a better designer, or you're a better creative, or you're a better problem solver. And I think that is so core to any tools that you're trying to take on. Is it's not about hitting these arbitrary metrics. It's about making yourself better at the process.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So another tool that we've used, and I think this is going to be a really fun day for podcasting because it's all about learning new things, is biomimicry. And I want Neil to tell us why he's been looking at earwigs.
Well, actually, it took me so long to learn the biomimicry word. I kept saying, Matt, what's that word? The bio, when you look at nature, what is it called? Biomimicry. I had to write it down because I kept forgetting. So biomimicry is when you look to nature for inspiration. And I did a bit of research we were looking at ways to fold clothes neatly and clothes management and things like that. And thinking outside the box, thinking of the actual problem. It's, storing clothes, storing them neatly, not just how do I make a nice coat hanger or something like that. And so I thought, I'm going to look a little bit at biomimicry. How do animals fold their clothes? Didn't find much on that thread, but I did think about wings because that's the closest thing I could think of, and came upon the earwig, which has I forget the statistic for it now. It was something like I think
it was 100 times, wasn't it?
Yeah, it folds up its wings to a high factor and opens them with a single action, and they all sort of flare out and they sort of fold back themselves. So this is sort of like origami masterpiece. And then I found a university study where they had 3D printed the same mechanism with different types of plastic that, depending on how it was angled, it sort of popped open and then folded back in itself. So yeah, another great tool actually. I didn't actually think I'd find much on biomimicry. I thought, animals don't wear clothes. I was thinking bat wings, they don't care about them being folded, and didn't go much further on it. But as it happened, stumbled upon the earwig, which nature does something that we could find a bit of use from.
Yeah, I think there's a whole conversation on surely something has been designed already and there's no point redesigning it. Nature has been around for a lot longer than we have, and it's been solving problems for a lot longer. And so usually, if not a direct solution, there is at least the start of a solution to a problem you're trying to solve, especially with mechanical structures and origami and folding and mechanisms and things like that. There's almost always something that you can look at. So I was very pleased to have this very excited. I love the way that you come across on the podcast, that you're always very excitedly calling me to talk about something. But you were look, I've been looking at earwigs, and I was like, okay, tell me more.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'll tell my wife, oh my God, you never know what I found out about the earwigs and biomimicry. So, oh, that's nice. So, I don't get the... You'll come with me on the journey and pretend to be as excited as I am.
Yeah. I usually find it exciting. This one was good. Okay, so when you've got all of these designs and the ideas are flowing, we do a bit of convergent thinking, and we did this by having a conversation, talking through. So we had we'd mapped the user journey of clothes in use. So from laundry to going into the cupboard, how they come out the cupboard. We had all of this survey information, and we kind of mapped it on the board, and we made sure that we could test this route. So, if I've just chucked something in the wash and I need to get it out quickly, where does it go? Have I got that? Okay, I can take that path, right, cool. What if I've been wearing this jumper for a week, I'm gonna put it back in the cupboard. Can I do that? Yes. So that's another tool. We're not gonna go into loads of detail on user journey mapping. I think it will come up later. But we were sort of cross-validating this massive explosion of ideas and filtering down into something that was useful. So maybe the app that we'd thought about to help you organize your socks was not necessarily so relevant in the context we were thinking about. We go, okay, maybe we shelve that one for later. It's a bit too technology based, or it's not along the right tracks. And this filtering leads you to a product design specifications. This is typically the middle of the double diamond of design. And in our case, we're trying to follow it to the letter. So we have arrived at the PDS, the product design specification. And this is where you set, I don't like calling them rules, but the considerations for your design as you go into the next divergent explosion of ideas. And I think it's quite a challenging piece of work because when you've got all this data from these surveys and you've got to like put it into something meaningful, and lots of people have different opinions. And so we sat down and we tried to make this thing.
Yeah. It's hard not to get frustrated with it because you want it to be perfect, but you don't have loads of data, like you said. So for the hairbrush example, it could be something like, it needs to fit in your hand or be handheld or portable. But then you sort of need to decide, well, does it? Is that really what you need? What if it was fixed to the wall and you just put your head in it and and you go around in these circles a little bit, and it's a bit of a struggle on figuring out what you think a user wants. And that's where sort of surveys come back in place. And there's a second cycle where you go through and then you sort of talk to users to understand, drilling it down. But once we did create it, I found it really useful for sort of more refining of the designs, because you can think, okay, so if I was making something, you can then apply crazy eights to those sorts of specs. So if I wanted something that's portable, what's 8 ways to make this thing portable? I want it to be whatever it is, hidden. What's 8 ways to make this thing hidden? And you then can come up with these different concepts around the different specifications, and then that again helps you to build this sort of all these different branches that you can pull together to create the things that you like, where you've got energy because you want some elements of one thing and some elements of another.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the things that we did find difficult was deciding on the needs versus the wants. So when you start out on a project, again, I'll talk about the hairbrush. You have an idea in your head and you think, okay, it needs to have bristles or it needs to have a handle. And then you have to really start challenging where these requirements are coming from. And the way we went through is you've got different categories. We might say these are functional requirements, or these are sustainability focused requirements or manufacturer requirements. And for the purposes of what we're doing, we're thinking mostly about the function, the performance of the product. So we've been focusing on those types of requirements, which are how it's going to get used or usability. But deciding that, it needs to be used every day versus every week, or it needs to be portable. Does it need to be portable? Is it fixed? Like you were just saying about having the hairbrush attached to the wall. I think we kind of went through this process of deliberation where we were almost voting on requirements as we went through the list. And then every time we had I'm not sure about that, we'd have to you have to pull it out and explain the disagreement and work through the process. And I think we did a pretty good job of getting to a consensus for them all.
Yeah, definitely. I mean that, like I said, the list that we come up with is, I think it's pretty much there. There might be a few things that we drop, and there was a couple of things that I come back and said, I think this one needs to be a lower priority because I think we've come up with this because of these reasons, and actually we're driven more by what we want rather than what we think the product needs to be, how it solves that problem.
Yeah. So once you've got the product design specification, you can get back into developing your ideas. And I would say we don't really stop and start. We let the processes spill over each other a bit and just make sure we're following them. Because especially when you're still ideating, it might be something really random that triggers an idea. Even just talking through the product design specification, even we'd say something, be like, oh, that means I can change that thing about that concept that I'd come up with. And so we've had these, this explosion of 100 ideas, narrowed it down, another, let's say 30, narrowed it down. Now we've got another set that we're developing, and we're doing sketches a lot this week.
Yeah.
And using the PDS to inform those sketches. So like you said, well, if it has to be portable, then I'll do a bunch of ideas on how I'd make it portable. And we had a conversation about, I think you'd said something about, I've spoken to someone and I don't think this is a good idea anymore.
That's happened a few times. I think the thing for this week was actually, you said, I showed you through my ideas, and you said, "I know there's some things that won't work, but I'm not going to say it because it's not the right time." And that's really, really important. And I think everybody falls into this trap when if someone comes to you with an idea, your first thing to say is, "Yeah, well, that won't work because of this. That won't work because of that." And it's horrible because it just kills the kills the idea. It kills people's sort of motivation for it. But one idea could be a mix of 10 different features working together. So maybe one of them is not going to work, and that's fine. And that's the whole point of this. It's when you kill when you just look for the things that don't work, you're just killing the process. It's really important to allow yourself to say, yeah, well, this could work. All right, maybe it will fall apart because it's only made of ice, but I like the idea that it keeps your bum cold when you sit on it, or it's important to sort of pick out the things
that is a strange hairbrush you're talking about. Where's the hair you're brushing there?
You didn't specify, Matt, head hair. You did not specify head hair.
It's true.
Yeah. See, I'm so well.
It's a niche market, but people want it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you should have been more specific if that's what you was going for with this product. I just thought any body hair. So
that's a brilliant point to move on.
We're back at bums again. Abort. Right. So, yeah, I think it's really important, and I would challenge anyone listening to just think about when someone's coming at you with an idea and how you react, and not to kill it down and see why it won't work, and try and just see the bigger picture and see what will work with that and work with that. Because that's the point, is finding the elements that work with it. And that's the bit that you take forward, even if the whole concept isn't going to work in general. It's what bit do you like about it? And that's the bit that you can take forward and figure out how to use that part.
Yeah. I'm sure you'd be able to spot a really nice, I'm sure there's been studies done on kids drawing pictures and having ideas, and the difference between saying, oh yeah, that's cool, and what if, it's the classic yes and versus what if, and all of that kind of language.
Yep.
But I think it's a really nice jumping off point for the triggers for good ideas and how you can get yourself in the right environment for good ideas.
Oh, yeah. And
you turned to me earlier this week and you said, I always feel like I have better ideas when I'm hungover.
Yeah, which is what it came from. I was struggling. I had a bit of a creative block, if you want to call it that. I felt like I was getting stuck on certain things I was really excited about, and I wanted to park those so that I could come back to them later, but start a few more threads and a few more ideas. And I was struggling a bit, and you were sort of helping me through, holding my hand, saying, well, when do you have your best ideas? When does that inspiration come to you? And yeah, when I have a hangover, which doesn't happen very often because I don't drink very much, I always find that there's a window of time the next morning where I'm like, oh, I've got a lot of ideas coming. I'm aware of it. And I'm only aware of it because a friend of mine who used to write songs had told me that's the same with them, and that does sort of happen. But I said to him, well, I don't really want to go and get drunk every night because that's not really, I don't want to sacrifice my health just for creating ideas. And then what I loved about that conversation, he was like, all right, well, let's just Google this. Okay, so your inhibitions, you really dissected why that's the case. I loved it. It's like, well, your inhibitions are lower when you're drunk, and that tends to happen the next morning. So that's why you feel this way. You completely broke down the reasoning. So you just need to get into the zone of lowering your inhibitions, and you can do this by bit of Googling, bit of AI chat. Right, so what you need to do is you need to work through it, and then you told me your workflow with idea generating, and go on, share it with the listeners, how you get into the zone.
Well, it was quite an interesting self-reflection, because it was, I'm going to tell you what to do, but wait, what do I actually do? And then it forced me to think about these things that I kind of have just developed out of habit and practice over the years that you don't even think about. It's the classic, we talk about the curse of knowledge. You have to really be thinking about something to realize that you're doing it in the first place sometimes. And so I was thinking, how do I create a safe space where I'm not worried about my, inhibitions? And I realized that I've been sketching more earlier in the morning or later at night when it's like the world is quiet outside, there's not as much distraction or noise, and your brain is maybe less encumbered by all the things that you've got to do during the day. And then I've got a couple of little rituals, and I'm going to stick with that word because I think they are quite ritualistic. And the first we were joking about is my obsession with pens. So I don't just carry a notepad with me. I carry a very specific set of notepads that I use these dot matrix. So it's like a grid. And that's really nice for sketching. I don't like lines. Lines are like, oh, I've got to, always worried about being level with the line. But with the dots, it's a bit more, it's just helpful. It's unencumbering. And then I've also got this little pouch I'll hold out for anyone that's watching. It's an old glasses case. It's not even my glasses case. And I fill it with my favorite pens because that's one less thing to worry about is, I know how this, it's going to sound so pretentious. I know how this pen is going to behave and how it's going to react on the page. And I know how it feels and I know how to use it. But it's just one less thing to think about. So I've got paper that I like. I've got a pen that I like. I've got the time of day that I like. Another thing is having music on because it just dulls all of the extra stuff that your brain's going to wander onto. It dulls all of the outside noises. If you've got headphones on, it's even better because you're like in this little cocoon. But if I'm in the house on my own, then I'll just like blare some music that's very chill in the background. The other ritual is with tea. We don't have to get too detailed on the step-by-step process because I went through it this morning and I was like, God, this is too long to put in a podcast. But I like a nice cup of tea. I've got a couple of very fancy teas that I like to occasionally make.
Is it a couple? How many teas do you have in your cupboard, Matt?
Yeah,
a couple of cupboards.
Yep, I like my tea. And I go through this step and I realize it's all about bringing your focus down to the right level and your attention and like calming and just getting rid of all of these distractions. And so going through these familiar steps, it's like a very obsessive and compulsive thing to do, but it also means that you're going to arrive at the destination that you want to get to. So you're going to be in the right headspace to do these things. And so I kind of encouraged you to try and do something similar, like find a space that you're comfortable in, clear some stuff up if you have to, make sure you've got like the time to think and really just like push through that writer's block, because I think it's easy to like, oh, I've got a writer's block, I'll go do something else. And you need to know, no, I need to sit down, I'm gonna get over this.
Yeah. I think we need to just add in about how just how much you care about your pens and what happens if you don't put the lid on properly. Yeah. Such
no,
a moniker.
I don't understand why you're a maniac. Like, honestly, you're going to handle someone else's like pens that they're going on about, draw like some picture and then just like leave the lids off. And at one point you put the wrong pen lid. We had some colors and you put the wrong color on, and I was just like looking at you and it wasn't even deliberate. Like, if you're doing it deliberately, then at least I can understand. But this is just, no, yeah. I don't understand how someone as like rational and structured as you is behaving like that.
Well, it was, yeah. What can I say?
I'm going to have my nice tea to calm down.
I'm just so fast and loose. You better, keep up. So I roll.
That was me having a sip of my nice tea just to,
Yeah,
calm
find the inner calm. Find the inner calm. All right, Matt. Okay, I think we should do it. I think this leads us on to our next segment, which is...
Oh no, I wasn't ready. Problem of the week.
Ooh, that's a bit tasty.
Yeah.
I like how you're... So we asked our listeners last week, we'll ask you lovely people to send us in your problems of the week and we'll find a solution to them. And we had... Oh God, the post box was flooded with letters coming through the door. All these people's problems. Why isn't there a more efficient way to send messages, they were saying?
It's agony on for...
Anyway, we got a letter from a friend of the show, Jim, who suggested we solve the problem with scooters. And Matt, you jumped on the back of this one. You're like, yes, I've got problems with scooters. Matt, I'm going to let you explain why this is a problem, and we'll fix it.
Okay, so scooters are very close to my heart, and I'm the youngest of three in my family. There's three boys as well. So my first scooter was my eldest brother's hand-me-down micro scooter, and micro are the original gangsters of the scooter industry, and they used to make these sort of foldable. They did not fold very nicely, but they were foldable aluminium scooters. And I'm going to emphasize the aluminium because a cold, hard metal that whips around and hits you in the heels if you're not using the scooter properly is maybe not the friendliest material for a kid's scooter. But I don't think they were really targeting kids with this. This was supposed to be like a stunt scooter. They were, all about the tricks and the spinny things on the handlebars. And they had this image of, being as cool as a skateboard, but it was a scooter, so it was easier. And I fancied myself as a bit of a skate park hoodlum.
Tea sipping gangster on his on his scooter. Did you have a little flask? Sorry guys, I'm just going to top up my tea before I do this half pipe.
And when I think I was 4 or 5, there's this park that we used to go to, and I'd got it in my head that I was this Evel Knievel type character. And I actually, just a slight aside, is I've noticed that this is back in the day when scooters weren't seen as a dangerous object for children to interact with. And so it was very strange to even think about wearing a helmet when you're on a scooter. Nowadays, it's like riding a bike, right? People wear protective equipment because if you fall off a scooter, you've basically fallen off a bike, and that is the sensible thing to do, but it didn't even cross our minds. And I was not wearing a helmet, and that is a key detail for what comes next. There was a step about a foot high. It's an old concrete or stone step leading up to this calf that's in the park. In fact, there are several of them. And I thought, I'm going to do it. Today's the day. I'm going to jump that step. I've never jumped anything before in my life, but I'm going to jump that foot step. 4-year-old on a micro scooter, ploughing down at what felt like at least 30 miles per hour. Definitely wasn't. Got to the step and I was like, yeah, this is it. I think I just need to lift the handlebars. Hadn't really planned this far ahead. Didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Lifted the handlebars and the scooter went out from underneath me and my forehead ploughed straight into the corner of that step.
No.
And blood exploded everywhere, and my parents like running to catch up to me, now wailing at the bottom of this cafe, like pandemonium breaking out. And my mum just like hoists me up, runs up to the cafe, she's like, I need like, I don't know, napkins or whatever, and they're just like stuffing tissue into my forehead to stop it bleeding. Long story short, we think that is the head trauma that makes me the way I am.
I mean, you're blaming the scooter there. I don't really think the scooter's got much to do with it, to be honest with you.
If it had better suspension or front wheels or any ability to actually get off the ground, then I'm not sure that I would be damaged like I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, scooters are a strange one, aren't they? Because all of your weight's on this. It's like a skateboard with a handle on the front. So if you're on a skateboard and you hit like a stone on the surface, and the wheels jam, you just step off. And if you're going really fast, obviously you might fall off or stumble forward. But on a scooter, you got this handle that all of your weight goes into, and you just go over the top, right? And it just ends up more catastrophic. Yeah. The proportions are way off. And you got this, this handlebar coming up. And if you're, smaller kid or whatever, smaller adult with a bigger handlebar, you've just got this nice flat surface to crash your face into as well. Or, if you're doing a jump and you don't land it, just come up under your chin. And there's lots of face hurting directions that can go. So,
yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
How are we going to solve this, Matt? Let's do it. What have you got for us?
Well, my solution is very specific to the problem that I had. I think, have you seen those, they're like, the I don't know the PC name for them. The granny trolley things that you take to the supermarket.
Oh yeah,
when you
like
get
with
to a certain
the
age.
4 wheels, and it's like a cube with a little. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen some really clever ones of those that have 3 wheels on one axle, and it's so that you can go up and down steps. So if you're like dragging it behind you,
Yeah.
the first wheel hits the step, and then they kind of like rotate over, and then the next wheel's on the step, and then it kind of like so it's like able to go up steps. I think that's what scooters should have, so that you can go over this sort of unfamiliar terrain. So when I wouldn't have lifted my wheel high enough, it still would have hit the step, but then the next wheel would have kind of ka-chunked over, and I would have glid across the step, and everyone would have been like, wow, look at that guy go. He must just be a scooter legend.
I actually really love that idea. What a brilliant idea. It's not just scooters. You can apply that to any roller skates. To, like any time where your wheel's going to stop or hit something, it's just like the next wheel comes in and goes over the obstacle. There's, brilliant. What a great, what a great thought. I was thinking more along the lines of larger wheels, so they got bigger circumference, so that because the problem is when you hit stuff, that's going to stop you from going, and your momentum's got to go somewhere. So a larger wheel would just ride over it. But I think that's a stupid idea now that you've come up with the free wheel.
No, I like yours. If you had a larger wheel, you still got the problem with the pole being too long. So if we do larger wheels and then a shorter pole,
right?
But because they're larger wheels, you probably want to be able to sit on something. So we've got one large wheel at the front and one large wheel at the back, and then handlebars and something to sit on.
Right. You could also. What if you don't scoot, but you have like this, because the ground's going faster than your leg can move. You sort of can increase the, you know where we're going with this. We'll stop.
Yeah. Okay. Bikes are not the solution.
Yeah.
So what's the root of the problem? What's the thing that we're trying to achieve? If we
I think we're just trying to prevent injury, right? That's the main thing, because they're as fun as they are. I mean, I can see why they're better than a skateboard. You've got a bit of steering, you do have something to hold on to, but they're just unstable. Your proportions are off, your center of gravity is off, your where you're putting all the mass when you have to stop quickly just throws it all out. I mean, what about like a I want to say like a roll cage, or the scooter is within the wheel, so there is no going over the handlebars. You become one with the scooter.
What if that made me think of those bubbles, the giant bubbles that people like to do those parties and stuff in?
Yeah.
If you've got a scooter in one of those, even if you fall off, it wouldn't hurt until the scooter's above you and drops down. But
yeah, great. I mean, I was trying to think then, how could you then have like a leg, you be in the bubble, you have like a leg sticking out so that you're on the scooter, so that if anything happens, you just roll to safety.
Yeah. I was just thinking about getting rid of the handlebars being in front of you. So that way, even if you do fall off, you're not falling into something and taking the scooter with you. You just fall free like on a skateboard. If there were like arms either side of you, a bit like hiking poles, and that's how you steer, that could be kind of like a fun and maybe slightly more intuitive way of steering this. Sorry for anyone watching, Neil's laughing at the fact that I'm just like
It's the campest
doing
move
this
I've ever
gesture.
seen you do. Yeah. Okay. All right. We've got some ideas. Actually, this is a really good example of rolling with the ideas, and all right, we have a bit of fun with it. But it ties back nicely to what we've been talking about the first half of the podcast with. We're having fun with it. But if you were designing something else, there are probably some bits that you could pick out of this. Let's make an idea map scooters. We'll do that one next on our product launch. It will be 2-handled, 3 wheels within a giant wheel air bubble scooter, and there will be no injuries.
Micro scooter, watch out, we're coming for you.
Right, I think we should probably wrap this one up. We've covered
Definitely.
a nice amount. So, yeah, if you have a problem for us, please send it in to us, and we will do our best to cover it and solve the problem for you next week.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's all for this week.
Yep, join us next week, where we'll give you another update on whether we've actually made it another week without any money, whether the £4 that we have left in the bank account has kept us going.
Have we gone into our overdraft and the debtors are hunting us down?
Yep, all will be revealed. All will be revealed next week. Thank you very much for listening. We appreciate all of the messages of support, all the listeners, all of the everyone sharing the story with us, coming along on the journey. It's it's just a great to be a part. Great to have everybody a part of it with us.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Invention Junkies out.
Bye.